Dozens of Americans are back in the U.S. after fleeing violence and turmoil in Haiti. More than 30 people landed in Miami yesterday after boarding a government-chartered flight in the volatile country. Some were visiting Haiti when they became trapped by weeks of gang violence. Here's what some of the passengers had to say.
I feel like we had no one fighting on our behalf. And finally, we got an email saying, hey, we got a flight for you. So feeling great.
How much time did you have to prepare to get on that flight?
I've been up since 1 in the morning. Got an email around 2 o'clock, and I've been up since packing in.
It's a mixed emotion. It's good to be back here. I'm safe. I'm with family, but I also need to think about the people back home.
For more on this, let's bring in Jonathan Katz. He's the writer for The Racket and the Racket newsletter and author of the book, The Big Truck That Went By, How the World Came to Save Haiti and Left Behind a Disaster. Jonathan, always great to talk to you, my friend, about what's going on in the island and the country that we love. So help our audience understand. I mean, foreigners are fleeing and aid groups are seizing operations in Port-au-Prince, the capital. And we should always stress that most of the turmoil is centered in the capital. But just so people understand, how did these gangs come to dominate Port-au-Prince in the way that they have?
Well, anytime you talk about Haiti, it's a question of what year you want to start. You want to start in 1804. You want to start in 2004. The short answer is that after the assassination of the president, Jovenel Moïse, in 2021, there was essentially no government left in Haiti because Moïse had, with U.S. acquiescence, not held any elections for his 5 years in office. The U.S. basically appointed a government which was supposed to hold elections. Those elections were never held. And in the security and legitimacy vacuum that government created, gangs that were already present metastasized and gained power and started competing with one another for influence and power and territory. And the acting prime minister, acting president went to Kenya to try to get a armed force in to bring some semblance of order to the country that would be beneficial to him. He was not able to get back in, and now nobody's really sure who's in charge.
So, I mean, these gangs are well-armed, well-resourced. Where did they, in the beginning, where were they getting their resources from, and where are they getting their resources from now?
There's a whole mixed bag of places that they get them from. A lot of the weapons come from, U.S. arms manufacturers. Some of the gangs historically have had connections to drug cartels. The gangs also have connections to the Haitian National Police. A lot of the most important gang leaders, including Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier, he's a former cop. He's a former member of the Haitian National Police. So there's a lot of bleeding from Haitian security forces into the gangs.
So, Jonathan, one of the things that people may not realize is that there is a vibrant business community, an elite business community in Haiti, that there are multimillionaires and even $1 billionaire, Gilbert Biggio. There are former presidents, some who live in Haiti still. I wonder why we haven't heard their voices, or perhaps we have in ways that we're not attuned to. But what can you tell us about this elite group of business people, these former presidents, and where they are weighing in on what is happening here?
Well, they tend to operate behind the scenes, which is part of the reason you don't hear about them very much in U.S. news. It also requires sort of a deeper level of knowledge of the players on the ground in a country that most Americans don't pay attention to. So even in a conversation like this one, it's hard to sort of, go through the entire map of them. They have different interests. Some have historically backed some of the gangs. Some of the former presidents, when they were president, had ties to some of the gangs on the streets. These alliances are constantly shifting. Some of the gangs who have been enemies, vicious enemies over the last several years, are now supposedly in an alliance with one another. That may indicate that the elites and the Haitian politicians who backed some of them may have made alliances with each other, or these alliances may be happening without the buy-in of the sources of money and resources behind them. Barbecue Cherizier, who is one of the most notorious of the gang outgoing leaders. He was nominally allied with the assassinated former president Jovenel Moïse and the Haitian Tekale party of former President Michel Martelly. But to be perfectly honest, I don't know where any of this stands, because these alliances are shifting so constantly that it can be very hard to know like where the power ties are.
And speaking of Haiti's future and how it ties to Haiti's past, Jonathan, as you mentioned, where do we start? Do we start in 1804? Do we start in 2004 or after the earthquake? As you know, last week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken attended an emergency meeting in Jamaica with Caribbean leaders over what's happening in Haiti. And it was shocking to, I think, well, it wasn't shocking to Haitians or Haitian Americans, but perhaps shocking to those of us here in the United States that Haitians are being excluded in the discussion.
I thought, why isn't Henri in Jamaica? He wasn't even part of those.
No,
I mean, if he wasn't there.
And it just struck me, Jonathan, you know this as well as anybody, that this is something that has been repeated in Haiti's history. Foreign powers deciding what to do with the sovereign nation who should be in charge of charting their own path and their own destiny. What did you make of that?
Yeah. That's how it goes. I mean, you can go back to the U.S. occupation of 1915 to 1934, the decades and repeated U.S. interventions. Look, Henri, maybe it would have been good for Henri to be a participant in those conversations in Jamaica, but Henri's government, the only legitimacy his government had, and I use that word advisedly, was essentially that a press release was posted. It was essentially a blog post, was posted on a website of a consortium of ambassadors led by the U.S. ambassador in 2021 that called on him to form a government. There was no constitutional process. He was never elected. He was never even ratified because there wasn't a parliament sitting to ratify him. So Henri, the only reason he was in charge at all was essentially because the United States pointed to him and said, "Okay, you're in charge now after Moïse's assassination." So maybe it would have been good for him to participate in that, but he is as much of anything as a symptom of these decades and really over a century of direct U.S. in particular and other foreign interference in Haitian affairs.
Jonathan Katz, always great to have you. I urge people to check out your books. All the ones that you've written have been excellent. And before you go, chapeau bas, as we say, because you were the reporter who broke the story about the Republican response after the State of the Union and Senator Katie Britt's use of a woman who she seemed to frame around President Biden. But in fact, her story began under President Bush's term in office. Jonathan, you are writing independently now, and you were the reporter who broke that story. So thank you for that, because you woke the mainstream media up to that story.
My pleasure. I think that part of the reason I was attuned to what she was saying is I spent so many years covering places like Haiti, covering Mexico, covering places in the global South, that I was able to intuit that something was wrong with that story.
Check out his books and check out his newsletter. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you.